Was my family joking? I couldn't believe the small amount they mentioned. Just the other day, my phone was buzzing nonstop with calls from my parents. When I finally answered, they started shouting before I could even speak. At first, I couldn't grasp what my dad was saying, leaving me totally confused. Later, I found out they were furious over the money I was supposedly sending my sister, Linda. They claimed she sent them as much as $112,000 each month while they thought I only contributed a meager 880 CS. But that wasn't true. I had been sending $112,000 every month, just like Linda. You must be lying, they insisted. Linda, with her modeling career, makes more than you. She sends us $112,000 a month. We are so disappointed in you. Linda is so thoughtful, my father grumbled, clearly upset. My mom joined in too, criticizing my lifestyle. Do you think it's okay to just live on your own, splurging your money? Why can't you be more like your sister? She cares about us so much, she sighed heavily. I've always felt that they favored Linda. She was stunning, turning heads wherever she went, while I was often overlooked. People always compared us, praising her beauty and joking about how plain I looked next to her. From a young age, it was clear to everyone that Linda was destined for success in acting or modeling. My parents doted on her, always making sure she had the newest, trendiest clothes and enrolling her in any class she wanted. Meanwhile, I made do with hand-me-downs and no classes at all. Linda grew up spoiled and entitled, believing that what was mine was also hers. She would take my things without asking, and when I protested, my parents would just tell me, "Let it go, Selena. She's younger. Be a good older sister." They dismissed my feelings so easily, always siding with her. Over the years, this favoritism only got worse. In elementary school, when Linda decided she wanted my room, my parents didn't hesitate to displace me. They moved me to the living room, justifying it by saying I didn't have many belongings and there was enough space for me to sleep. The living room, where I slept among old family portraits, became my new bedroom. Feeling overlooked and undervalued, I eventually decided to stop sending money home, hoping to make a point. I'm Selena, a 31-year-old working at a food processing company, living with the weight of being the less favored child, while my stunning sister, Linda, 6 years my junior, enjoyed the limelight and affection that I never felt from our parents. Despite the cold treatment and harsh comparisons, I carried on, holding on to the memory of my grandparents, who had always cherished me dearly. Growing up, my name, Selena, was chosen by my grandfather during the vibrant spring season, when Selenas were blooming. He adored these flowers, and their resilience resonated with him. As a child, I loved sitting on his lap, enveloped in his warmth and listening to his comforting words. "Selena," he would say, "no matter how tough things get, you can always push through. After the hardships, happiness will bloom again, just like a manned ice in spring." These words from my grandfather came back to me often, especially during difficult times. As I grew older, it became evident that my parents treated me and my sister, Linda, very differently. I never really felt at home in my own house. When I expressed my dream of becoming a school nurse and wanted to discuss university entrance exams, my parents immediately dismissed the idea. "We can't afford university fees for you. Think about your sister, Linda. We need to save for her future," they insisted. Though financially we were an average family, not struggling by any means, my dreams were pushed aside to prioritize Linda's aspirations. After high school, while Linda went off to a prestigious university, I entered the workforce, landing a job at a small to medium-sized company a few train stops away from home. Eventually, I moved out and rented a small studio apartment near work. It was a relief to be on my own, away from the constant comparisons and favoritism at home. Linda, meanwhile, flourished at university and was soon scouted by a talent agency during a shopping trip with friends. My parents were over the moon, constantly talking about her modeling career. One day, Linda called me, her voice full of excitement and gratitude. "We owe everything to Mom and Dad," she said. "Let's start giving them $12,000 each month to show our appreciation." The amount shocked me. $120,000? That's a lot of money. While modeling might pay well, I was only making about $66,000 a month at my job. If I agreed, I'd have to cut my expenses drastically, and even then, I'd need to find extra income. Reluctantly, I decided to take on weekend work as a security guard at a construction site. The job paid well, but was physically grueling. Summers were scorching, and winters were bitterly cold. Many times, I thought about quitting. Despite the difficulties, I continued, driven by a mix of family loyalty and the desire to not feel lesser than my sister. Deep down, I clung to my grandfather's words, hoping that after these hard times, happiness would once again bloom for me, just like the Selenas of spring. Despite the challenges of balancing a demanding job and certification studies with little sleep, my coworkers showed unexpected kindness. They often bought me drinks and food, realizing the effort I was putting in. I was doing everything I could to save money, cutting back on eating out and other unnecessary expenses, but reaching the monthly $122,000 I promised to send home was still a stretch. Determined to boost my income, I decided to earn a professional certification. I dedicated every spare moment to studying, the days blurring into a fast-paced mix of work and learning. In this hectic schedule, I missed several calls from my parents. When I finally had a moment to call them back, I was met with immediate anger. "You are horrible. What do you think of us?" my father yelled as soon as I answered, with my mother's voice echoing in agreement in the background. Confused, I asked, "What's wrong? Are you talking about the money I send?" I couldn't understand their anger. "Do you know how much Linda is sending? $112,000. And you send just 80? Are you mocking us?" my father accused. "That's impossible. I am sending $112,000 monthly," I replied firmly, shocked by their claims. "Don't lie. Linda earns more than you from her modeling, so she's the one sending us $112,000 each month. I'm really disappointed in you." "Linda is so smart," my father continued, his tone full of disappointment. My mother chimed in, criticizing my lifestyle and accusing me of not caring about the family as much as Linda did. I was dumbfounded, overwhelmed by sadness, unable to articulate a response. It then dawned on me that there had been a huge misunderstanding. Previously, Linda had suggested we keep our contributions anonymous under the pseudonym Rainbow. At the time, I didn't realize Linda's stage name was Rain, and it turned out that the transactions of 80 cents were mistakenly recorded under my name, Selena, while Linda was credited with the $122,000 contributions. Before I could explain the mix-up, my parents declared they didn't need my mocking 80 cents and hung up. I felt a mix of anger and betrayal towards Linda for not clarifying our arrangement, which left me sleepless and filled with turmoil. Unsure whether to continue sending money, I decided to seek advice from my high school friend, Scarlett, who worked at a consulting firm. Scarlett was known for her capability and reliability, and she always gave frank, honest advice. When I requested a sudden meeting, Scarlett was surprised. "What happened?" she asked, noticing my distressed expression as we met for lunch. I opened up about the family situation, explaining the misunderstanding about the money. After hearing my story, Scarlett responded thoughtfully. "Are your parents struggling financially? Aren't they still in their 80s?" she asked, clearly taken aback. She was also stunned by the $112,000 amount. "It seems like they have debts. It's money spent on you both," she questioned. As we continued talking, Scarlett helped me consider different perspectives and possibilities, offering me a valuable outside viewpoint on this emotionally charged situation. When my sister, Linda, first suggested that we send money to our parents as a token of our gratitude, I had briefly discussed it with Scarlett. Back then, she had already been skeptical. "You say it's money spent on both of you, but you didn't even go to university, right?" she pointed out. "Wasn't most of that money spent on Linda? And your dad is still working too. There's no need to send $122,000 a month. It's unimaginable that they suddenly need that much money when they've been living just fine so far." Her words made sense, especially when she added, "If your parents thought your contribution was just 80 cents, perhaps you should take their hint and stop the payments." "You're too kind, Selena. You shouldn't let yourself be pushed around," Scarlett advised. Her words struck a chord with me, and I resolved not to be swayed so easily by family pressure. One morning, my phone rang incessantly. It was Linda, and she was clearly angry. "Why haven't you been answering your phone all morning? And why did you stop sending money on your own? What were you thinking?" she demanded, her frustration evident. Overwhelmed by my own life challenges and financial struggles, I felt the weight of her accusations. But I had learned from Scarlett that Linda's so-called financial contributions were more about maintaining her pride and our parents' extravagant habits rather than actual necessity. Scarlett, who was also an acquaintance of a friend of Linda's, had been discreetly gathering information for me. She discovered that Linda frequently splurged on clothes and cosmetics, complaining to her friends, "My big sister is my source of funds, so I rely on her money." Lately, I've been struggling because I don't have money from my sister. I might have to cut back on facials and cosmetics for a while. It also came to light that my mother was indulging in luxury brands, and my father was not working, but gambling. Supporting their wasteful lifestyles with my hard-earned money felt absurd. "You think I don't know? Dad is working, so my money isn't needed, right?" I confronted Linda. A few days later, my parents approached me after the $112,000 monthly payments had stopped. They had finally talked to Linda, who, through tears, admitted that she hadn't been making nearly as much as she claimed. In reality, she had become a burden on her modeling agency. Despite her cute appearance, she lacked talent in singing or dancing, which hindered her success in the entertainment industry. Her modeling gigs were sporadic and low-paying, often for inexpensive online catalogs. Upon learning the truth, my parents' attitude took a sharp turn. "We've been strict with Linda, so don't worry. Just continue sending money as before," they said unapologetically. Not only were they demanding that I resume payments, but they also expected the 3 months of withheld payments. "We've prepared for 3 months, so please deposit it when you can. You are reliable after all," they added, as if my financial support was an obligation. Their audacity astounded me. Finally, I decided to question them further about their financial status, something that had been nagging at me. "I heard from Linda that there was some debt. Is that true?" I asked. "Debt? There's no way," my father scoffed. "We covered Linda's tuition with your grandparents' inheritance." This conversation revealed the deep discrepancies between what I had been led to believe and the reality of my family's financial and moral landscape. It became clear that I needed to make decisions based not just on familial obligation but on a fair assessment of their actual needs and the truth behind their requests for money. My father, confident in his deception, stated, "Your grandfather's savings covered everything. We just need a bit more for shopping." My mother added casually, "Since your father's salary is enough, it's not like we're struggling." Their words solidified my decision. "Then why doesn't Linda get a full-time job?" I asked, my frustration reaching its peak. My father sharply retorted, "Is that how you speak to your own parents? I didn't raise a daughter to act like this." My mother echoed his sentiment. "We don't need a daughter like you, if you're going to be like that." Then came their final blow. "We'll just use your grandfather's savings for you. You're no longer part of this family." They expressed their willingness to cut ties over money. I was deeply shocked and hurt. After they left, I broke down, feeling utterly disposable and questioning my value to my own family. 3 months passed in silence before my doorbell rang unexpectedly. Standing there were my parents and Linda. I hesitated but opened the door, puzzled by their worn and tired appearances, which contrasted sharply with my improved situation. Since they last saw me, I had been working hard, studying diligently to obtain a small business consultant certification, which significantly boosted my salary. Scarlett had helped me land a new job, where I was now a team leader. I was enjoying a fulfilling work life and even considering moving closer to work into a better apartment. "What's with the luxury?" my parents and Linda asked almost accusingly, noticing my nicer clothes and healthier appearance. Before I could respond, my mother demanded, "Before you indulge in such luxuries, give us some money." I was disgusted by their attitude. With Dad's and Linda's income, you can live comfortably. What's really going on? I challenged. Linda, tears welling up, revealed her ongoing struggles in the modeling industry. She had been scouted by another agency and had invested a significant sum, believing it would kickstart her acting career. Unfortunately, it turned out to be a scam. The agency vanished with their money, leaving no trace behind. At that moment, someone from a consumer finance company appeared at my door, asking if I was related to them. It turned out my family had borrowed a large sum, hoping Linda's career would turn around quickly. Furthermore, Linda had been spending lavishly at nightclubs to relieve stress, worsening their financial woes. I was astounded by their reckless behavior and irresponsibility. When the finance agent asked if I was family, I firmly stated, "I don't know these people at all. I have nothing to do with them." It was a harsh response, but necessary to protect myself from the consequences of their actions. This moment marked a definitive break, not just emotionally but legally, from the destructive patterns of my family. After that moment at my doorstep, I closed the door on my family, both physically and emotionally. For the first time in my life, I felt a sense of liberation, like a heavy weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I no longer felt bound by their expectations, manipulation, or guilt. My parents and Linda, now drowning in debt, had no choice but to face reality without my financial support. With no money left and debts piling up, my parents were forced to file for bankruptcy. As a result, they had to sell our family home and move into a modest apartment. Despite their arrogance, they finally had to accept a simpler way of life. My father, who had spent years looking down on me and my choices, was now forced to take up a job at a construction site, the very same site where I had once worked as a security guard. On his first day, one of the workers greeted him with, "Hey, old man, help me out here. There used to be a young lady here before, but she quit. She worked hard sending money to her parents." I'd love to see the faces of parents who'd make their daughter work here. Hearing that, my father's expression hardened. Meanwhile, Linda had given up on her modeling dreams. She tried working in nightlife establishments, but her entitled and self-centered personality didn't sit well with customers. She was quickly dismissed from various clubs and lounges, eventually scraping by with earnings from a small bar. Her beauty, once her greatest asset, began to fade due to stress and a declining lifestyle. Among the regulars at the bar, tales of her modeling days seemed like distant, almost unbelievable memories. A model? Who are you kidding? Look in the mirror, they mocked her. The very people who once adored her now ridiculed her. My mother, once obsessed with luxury brands, now had to settle for second-hand clothing. Despite their downfall, my parents never apologized. Instead, they resented me for walking away, though deep down I knew they regretted taking me for granted. But by then, I had already moved forward with my life. Without the burden of supporting my family, I flourished. I excelled at my job, and my recent certification as a small business consultant had significantly boosted my salary. I moved into a spacious, modern apartment closer to work, decorated it to my liking, and finally started indulging in small luxuries for myself. Things I never allowed before because I was too busy sacrificing for others. I traveled, explored new hobbies, and even started considering a master's degree. For the first time, I was living for myself. 6 years later, I found myself standing at a beautiful seaside chapel in Tampa, Florida, at Scarlett's wedding. The atmosphere was warm, filled with laughter and joy. Next to Scarlett stood her husband, beaming with pride. As I watched her exchange vows, I couldn't help but reflect on how much she had done for me. During the reception, Scarlett leaned over and whispered, "Selena, you should also face your feelings. You've always been strong, but it's okay to let someone in." Her words took me by surprise, but before I could respond, she grinned mischievously. "I want to introduce you to someone." She gestured toward a tall, well-built man with a charming smile. "This is Ethan," she said. "He runs an architectural firm. I think you two will get along." Ethan extended his hand, and as our eyes met, I felt a warmth I hadn't experienced in a long time. Over dinner, we talked and laughed, sharing stories of our past and ambitions for the future. For the first time in years, I felt excitement, not just about my career or independence, but about the possibility of love. As the night drew to a close, I stepped outside the venue, looking up at the starlit sky. I took a deep breath and whispered to myself, "Grandpa, please keep watching over me from above. I'll make sure to blossom fully, just like the Salinas in spring." A smile spread across my face as I realized I had finally found happiness. Not in my family's approval, not in their validation, but in the life I had built for myself. A life where I was free. A life where I could finally bloom.